Hello, I'm Esther Gidhu. Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. Malawians are mourning the death of Vice President Saulos Chilima and 9 others who died Monday in a plane crash. The world awaits to see if Hamas will agree to a proposed multi-stage ceasefire in Gaza as U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken shuttles the region seeking peace. And health workers in Nigeria's southwestern Oyo State participate in a drive to spread information about the HPV vaccine. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. We begin with tragic news out of southeastern Africa. Malawi's Vice President Saulos Chilima, 51, and 9 others were killed in a plane crash. The country's President Lazarus Chakwera made the announcement in an address on state television on Tuesday. The wreckage of the military plane carrying Chilima was located in a mountainous area in the north of the country. The plane went missing Monday morning while making the 45-minute flight from Lilongwe to the city of Mzuzu. Chakwera described the aircraft carrying Chilima as a small twin-propeller-driven plane operated by the Malawian Armed Forces. It left the capital Lilongwe at 9:17 a.m. local time on Monday, but was unable to land at Mzuzu Airport as scheduled due to poor visibility. It was ordered to return to the capital but went off the radar, and aviation authorities could not make contact with it. Let's hear from President Chakwera.
And I am deeply saddened and sorry to inform you all that it has turned out to be a terrible tragedy. The search and rescue team has found the aircraft near a hill in the Chikangawa forest, and they have found it completely destroyed with no survivors, as all passengers on board were killed on impact.
Chilima, seen as a potential candidate in next year's presidential election, was arrested in 2022 over graft allegations. However, a Malawi court dropped the charges against him last month after the Director of Public Prosecutions filed a notice for the case to be discontinued. Chilima had denied wrongdoing. Malawians received the news of the death of Vice President Saulos Chilima with shock and disbelief. Reporter Chimwemwe Padatha spoke to citizens in Lilongwe.
A sad day for Malawi as the nation mourns the death of the country's Vice President Saulos Chilima, who has died in a plane crash. President Lazarus Chakwera announced of the death of the Vice President in a national address over 24 hours since a search and rescue mission was commissioned. Chakwera in the address mentioned that there were no survivors on board. Malawians have been responding to the shocking news.
Sad news that the country has indeed received today. The Vice President, everyone was wishing him well, but sad to have heard from the President, who has just confirmed that the plane that he was in crashed in Chikangawa. So everyone, I think, is saddened with the news, and probably everyone was looking forward to see him arrive, and the 8 others, everyone would have loved to see them alive, but sad news we've heard from the President.
From a personal perspective, I would say it's a sad development to the country, because this was a guy that was ambitious, had good dreams for the country, and as the youth, at least we had proper leadership into what we were going into. So to actually get that we've lost our leader, it's a very sad development, and as a country and as the youth, we are really concerned and sad about this development.
After hearing this accident, I feel very bad. Even here I'm speaking, I feel very bad.
The Vice President, Saulos Chilima, was en route to Nkatabe to attend the funeral ceremony of one of the country's renowned lawyers, Rafael Kasambala. But the plane was forced to return to Lilongwe due to bad weather and crashed in a forest known as Chikangawa. Chimwe Barata, VOA News, Lilongwe, Malawi.
For more on the Malawian Vice President's death, I'm joined live from Malawi by Alex Banda, a reporter with Zodiac TV. Alex, welcome to Africa 54. Tell us how Malawians are remembering the late Saulos Chilima.
Thank you so much, Esther, for having me on. I must say, Malawians are grief-struck. Most of them have taken to social media platforms. They are clearly showing their grief, mourning the vice president clash that happened on Monday morning. But it is only after, as you have rightly put it, there in the afternoon of today, Tuesday, at around 12:15, that the president then had to break this news that the vice president, his vice, Dr. Saulos Chilima, has actually died in that plane crash. Malawians are in disbelief. About 6 hours since the president announced that, and most of them are grief-struck and, of course, hoping to unite in that military airport.
Alex, are there any state plans so far by the president about, his funeral?
In his speech, the president did allude to the fact that there will soon be issuing out a statement on how the funeral rites, the ceremony of the departed president is going to be. For sure is that this is going to be a state funeral with the Malawi Defense Force conducting that ceremony. But as we speak now, the bodies of the those that were in that airplane have just been airlifted from Chikangawa Forest, that's in Vipya Plantation in the north of Malawi, to the capital, Lilongwe. As we speak, the bodies, the remains of the ones that were in that airplane have just landed on Kamuzu International Airport, and they will now be taken to a facility where they will be treated, and hopefully we hope that they are going to be put in different caskets, and then they will be deployed for the ceremony. But as we speak now, there is no statement from government or from the president, who has been updating Malawians on this tragedy, on how the funeral is going to be handled.
Alex, what's one thing you would say that stood out about Chilima's contribution to Malawi?
There's quite a lot. I would describe the late Vice President Dr. Saulos Chilima as a kingmaker. The Vice President has served two different administrations, one with the Democratic Progressive Party, DPP, with Peter Mutharika, and then he had to defect and form an alliance with the current. That's together, it's got about 9 different political parties, but UTM, which he was president of, was a major partner with the Malawi Congress Party, where the incumbent president, Lazarus Chakwera. So the two had formed that coalition together with other small parties to form the Tonse Alliance. And this coalition, this alliance, Lazarus Chakwera and the UTM of Vice President Saulos Chilima ushered the two into power back in 2020. And we have seen the two governing Malawi for the period of 4 years now. But he is a kingmaker to have served in those two administrations. Not only that, he, during his 10-year career and as service as a vice president, he oversaw he championed the public sector reforms. He was a champion of that, and he surely shall be remembered for championing the mindset change of Malawians, a phenomenon that most Malawians are now embracing. Right. It's something that was for us Malawians, but right. He brought in radical thinking and mindset change towards development. Mm-hmm. He also had an agenda right. for the youth.
Alex,
Esther,
yes, we're going to have to leave it there. Certainly a very big loss for Malawi and the continent of Africa and the world. For his contribution, Alex Banda is a reporter with Zodiac TV in Malawi. A short time ago, the son of U.S. President Joe Biden, Hunter, was convicted of all 3 felony charges related to the purchase of a handgun in 2018 when prosecutors say he lied on a mandatory gun purchase form by saying he was not illegally using addicted to drugs. Jurors found Hunter Biden guilty of lying to a federally licensed gun dealer, making a false claim on the application by saying he was not a drug user, and illegally having the gun for 11 days. Hunter Biden faces up to 25 years in prison. Although first-time offenders do not usually get anywhere near the maximum, and it remains unclear whether he will serve time behind bars. For continuing updates on this story, visit voanews.com. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reaffirmed his commitment to a proposed multi-stage ceasefire in Gaza and that Hamas is the only party yet to agree to the plan. Blinken spoke after briefly meeting with family members of Israeli hostages in Gaza during his visit to Tel Aviv. Blinken says the United Nations Security Council's approval of a U.S. drafted resolution calling on Israel and Hamas to implement the ceasefire deal made it as clear as it possibly could be that this is what the world is looking for.
Everyone's vote is in, except for one vote, and that's Hamas. And that's what we wait for. It is on Hamas to move forward with this proposal or not. And it's very clear what, as I said, virtually the entire international community wants to see, and of course what so many families want to see. And it's also what the people of Gaza so desperately need.
VOA's congressional correspondent Catherine Gibson has more on efforts to end the 8-month-old Middle East conflict.
A new look at the raid this past weekend as Israeli special forces rescued hostages held by Hamas since last October. Joy for the hostages' families Monday as they welcomed their loved ones home.
We are so grateful to the IDF for the brave rescue that brought Almog home to us. But the remaining hostages need a deal to get home safely.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken back in the region Monday for meetings with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Hamas is the only party that has not agreed to the deal.
Does Hamas want to end this conflict, end this war that it started, or not? We'll find out. But it's clear that virtually the entire world has come together in support of the proposal.
The war began last October when Hamas launched a surprise attack on Israel, killing 1,200 people. Gaza's health ministry, which does not distinguish civilians and combatants, says more than 36,000 Palestinians have died since the beginning of hostilities. The United Nations Security Council overwhelmingly passed a resolution Monday endorsing the ceasefire plan.
Palestinian civilians are living through sheer hell through no fault of their own. And the humanitarian situation in Gaza has gotten worse and worse and worse.
The ceasefire deal outlined by the United States 10 days ago would allow for the release of the remaining 120 Israeli hostages in captivity. A senior Hamas official told Reuters that Blinken's comments about the ceasefire were biased. Catherine Gibson, VOA News.
Still to come, Nigerian health workers spread the word about the HPV vaccine. We'll be right back.
On the next Straight Talk Africa, South Korea held the first ever summit with leaders and representatives of 48 African countries. The summit sought to build better business and trade cooperation with the continent's nations and its vast mineral resources. Are Africa's ties with South Korea benefiting the continent? Join me, Vincent Makori, for an in-depth look at the South Korea-Africa Summit on the next Straight Talk Africa.
In times of change, when the world seems uncertain, and what we hear doesn't reflect what we see, we seek the truth. When we are told only part of the story, we lose trust. In moments of crisis, our dreams, hopes, and wishes for a better tomorrow depends on a free press. At Voice of America, we bring you the stories that people take risks to see. We connect the world and unite it with truth. At Voice of America, we show you the whole picture.
In other news, new research shows that African elephants call each other and respond to unique names, a phenomenon that is rare among wild animals. The names can be heard in low rumbles that carry long distances across the savanna. Scientists say that naming behavior is more common in animals with social structures and families that separate and reunite. The UN International Organization for Migration says a boat carrying migrants sank off the southern coast of Yemen Monday, killing at least 49 with 140 missing. The IOM says the boat was carrying some 260 Somalis and Ethiopians from the northern coast of Somalia across the Gulf of Aden when it sank. The IOM says search efforts are continuing Tuesday, and so far 71 people have been rescued. And South Africa has held off Bangladesh by 4 runs to stay unbeaten in the T20 World Cup on Long Island, New York. Spinner Keshav Maharaj bowled a 6-run, 2-wicket final. South Africa strengthened the top spot in the Group D and is in the pole position to secure a Super 8 spot. South Africa completes the group stage against Nepal on Friday. South Africa has seen several waves of immigration from China, with early generations of migrants fleeing extreme poverty at home and newer arrivals seeking business opportunities. Kate Bartlett has the story about Chinese South Africans who have established businesses in Johannesburg, old and new Chinatowns.
From duck to dim sum, the kitchen inside Shonde restaurant in Johannesburg gives Chinese immigrants a little taste of home. Hong Kong native and restaurant owner Kun Chan immigrated to South Africa almost 40 years ago.
It was easy to make money in South Africa back then.
Chan used to have a restaurant in the old original Chinatown. He closed that business because people got scared going to the old Chinatown due to crime. Chinese migrants have been living in Johannesburg before the old Chinatown was even built. The first Chinese arrived in the 17th century as convicts or slaves from what is now Indonesia with the Dutch East India Company. Then, during the early 1800s, Chinese indentured laborers were brought to work on the railways. The original Chinatown on Commissioner Street was established in the 1880s when free Chinese from the impoverished south of China came to the frontier mining town as part of the gold rush. Then, in 1948, South Africa established the apartheid system. Chinese living in the country were classified as colored. Like black South Africans at the time, they were restricted to living in certain areas, but much has changed. Apartheid ended and a democratic government was formed in 1994. How ethnic Chinese immigrants from different backgrounds see each other also changed, says Arthur Ma.
Before, say 20 years ago, you could feel it because we don't even really speak to each other, the new and the old one. We just stick to our own selves, the local Chinese and the overseas Chinese. Now, we help one another.
Ma is a first-generation Chinese South African. His father fled poverty in southern China and arrived by boat in 1942. As life improved here, he sent money back home.
Then we actually helped build a hospital, give a little bit donation in our own village.
Now, Johannesburg's ethnic Chinese community includes people from Taiwan and Hong Kong. And as China opens up and prospers, there are new immigrants from mainland China.
Anything we need help, we always ask the new one because they're the ones with the money, you see, because China's going good. But we pave the road for them in this country.
Now there is a new, safer Chinatown where more Chinese gather in the suburb of Cyrildene. South African-born doctor Alice Yulin Phan's parents moved from Taiwan in the 1980s.
My dad and my aunt opened up factories in Bloemfontein, and then afterwards they opened up restaurants.
Yulin Phan and Chan's children and grandchildren can now live where they choose to live in the city. Many have professional jobs, but still come to the new Chinatown where Chan has relocated his restaurant. Eating, celebrating festivals, events that bring ethnic Chinese from different backgrounds together to keep traditions alive. Kate Bartlett, VOA News, Johannesburg.
It's time for a health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Mudu with the latest on HPV vaccines. Hello, Lino.
Hello, Esther. Cervical cancer is caused by persistent infection with the human papillomavirus, or HPV, according to the World Health Organization. It is the most common cancer among women in the southern African nation of Eswatini, while globally it is the 4th most common cancer. Despite this, a vaccination program in Eswatini that aims to prevent cervical cancer is meeting resistance. Nokukanya Musi has more from Manzini.
A vaccination campaign in Eswatini aims to protect schoolgirls against the human papillomavirus, or HPV. The virus can lead to cervical cancer, the most common cancer among women in Eswatini. But experts say the vaccine can prevent most cases of cervical cancer if it is administered before a girl or woman is exposed. Despite this, the vaccination campaign is stirring debates among parents in the Manzini region and elsewhere in the country. Some say the government did not provide enough information when it launched the program in June 2023. Precious Shongwe is a parent and cervical cancer survivor.
I am well versed because I work in the health center, but I still feel like I still have other certain questions as much as I support it, especially for other parents, because a lot has been said, there are a lot of myths that are still ongoing, and parents are not given a chance to ask questions. Even the girls are also not given a chance to ask.
The Ministry of Health is running the campaign in partnership with the World Health Organization, WHO, and Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, which provides funding for vaccines for children in poor countries. Sisana Mamba, a grandmother and mother, says families in rural areas did not get the information they needed.
I only learned about the vaccination program from the school, and then the following week I was handed consent forms to fill and sign for our children without adequate education on the matter. Parents like us, especially in rural areas, were left uninformed and signed with a lack of understanding.
But a spokesperson for the Ministry of Health says the government properly informed all communities before the vaccination drive and continues to do so.
We continue to educate communities, we continue to educate parents, and we engage in community dialogues in terms of the importance of taking the HPV vaccine. We also share information through various media platforms. We also use opportunities that we get during outreach, community outreach projects where we go and give health services.
Cedric Chewa is the president of the Eswatini Schools Committee and the Parents Association.
The government informed head teachers but left parents out. We have many questions that haven't been answered.
As the debate continues over the HPV vaccination, the vaccination campaign continues in a bid to protect young people from HPV and lower the highest rate of cervical cancer in the world. Nogukanya Musi, VOA News, Manzini, Eswatini.
Now to Nigeria. In the southwestern Oyo State, health workers participated in a drive to spread information about the HPV vaccine in rural areas. As Nigeria fights cervical cancer with the vaccine, it's all hands on deck to spread the word in villages. Nigeria first introduced the human papillomavirus, or HPV vaccine, to help prevent cervical cancer as part of the routine immunization program in October last year. The vaccine is now available across the country. United Nations data reveal that cervical cancer is the third most common cancer in Nigeria and the second most frequent cause of cancer death among women aged between 15 and 44 years.
We have heard about cervical cancer before now, and we are aware of the disease it creates. That's why I asked my daughter to go get vaccinated as a preventative measure.
This vaccine is safe, and it doesn't have any negative effects on the girls, because there are some rumors going around that they want to reduce the fertility of the girls. But we have been educating the parents that this vaccine is safe. The only thing it does is it prevents cervical cancer.
Nigerian authorities had been ramping up campaigns online and offline to educate citizens about the HPV vaccine.
It is very important for parents, healthcare workers, and government to come together to work to make sure that the girls are vaccinated against cervical cancer. Because as we know, cancer is, let me say, it is a deadly disease if it is not prevented or if it is not detected early. But once a girl child is vaccinated, it prevents such a girl from having cervical cancer. And this reduces the burden that a person that has cervical cancer, the burden that anybody that has cervical cancer will put on the family and the government, as well as the health care workers.
Although the HPV vaccine has been in use in many developed nations for about 2 decades, only half of the countries in Africa have introduced it in their immunization programs, despite the continent's heavy burden. That's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on X at @LinochMudu. Back to you, Esther.
Thanks, Lino. Be sure to watch Lino Mudu's health reports every Tuesday right here on Africa 54. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.